This is a Nice Guys Patreon exclusive.
Welcome to another Ice Guys team season preview. 32 teams in 32 days rolls along. Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and we are joined by Perlo. You know him well on this video to talk about the Colorado Avalanche, a very interesting team to talk about, considering we've always thought of them highly as one of the better teams in the Western Conference, perennial Stanley Cup contender. No question about that. Last year, you can't really complain too much about the regular season, finishing with 102 points behind Winnipeg and Dallas in the Central Division. Still a very good regular season overall. Looked like things were in pretty good shape in a certain Game 7 for Colorado early in the third period against the Dallas Stars, but a certain memorable night for the former Colorado Avalanche star, as Sean McDonough exclaimed on the broadcast. I think he did that purposely. Mikko Rantanen spoiling the night with an incredible third period performance and ending the Colorado Avalanche season with a third period for the ages as the Dallas Stars took down Colorado in 7 games, and especially a memorable 7th game. Well, maybe not so much if you're an Avalanche fan, but you get my point. When you look at Colorado this year, entering the season, it's a team that we've always reveled in the past about the forward depth that this group has. I know that's probably going to get put to the test a little bit more this season. Certainly, all things considered, health remains constant for Colorado. Top 6 should be fine. Arturi Lehkonen, Nathan McKinnon, Marty Necas, Gabe Landeskog, a full season of health, hopefully, for Gabriel Landeskog, who made his return to the Avalanche team late in the year last year, playing with Brock Nelson, who, of course, was acquired at the deadline from the Islanders last season. And, of course, Big Val Nichushkin, who, of course, has had, obviously, off-ice issues, but more importantly, injury problems of late, too. So if he stays out, if that group, can stay intact, that's a very good top 6 that you can really go to war with anybody. It's going to be what you get from the bottom 6 group. Because there are still some questions. Victor Olofsson, we'll see how he fits here with the Colorado Avalanche, full season of him. Ross Colton, I thought, had a pretty solid year for the Avs last year. Yoel Kiviranta, you've got a 4th line of Parker Kelly, Jack Drury, who's another piece that came back at the deadline for Colorado last year. And, of course, Ivan, is likely to be, potentially be a full-time member of this roster, and they hope Ivan scores goals this year and produces for the Colorado. That never gets old, being able to say that, but no question, I think Ivan does have some offensive upside. Then you got a bunch of players that are interchangeable. They'll be battling for one of the few remaining forward spots, down in the bottom 6, Valhaber, TJ Tynan, Alex Barré-Boulet. Yeah, he's on this Avalanche team as well. The blue line we like. There's not much to complain about. Devon Taves, Cale Makar, obviously stalwarts with this team for years. Love both of them. As good as it gets as far as, a top 2 defenseman group pairing, if you will, in the NHL when both of them are playing at their highest level. Sam Girard, Josh Manson, Sam Malinsky, and the veteran Brent Burns rounding out this blue line here for Colorado. And, I'll say this about Brent Burns. Just when you think that guy's done, he actually didn't have a bad year last year for the Carolina Hurricanes. It'll be interesting to see, for Colorado, what he can provide. If anything, he'll bring you, that veteran presence. And the nice thing, too, is it's shaping up that they're not going to ask him to be the Brent Burns of years ago, where he's going to be asked to play, 30 minutes a night, 25, 30 minutes a night. They're going to pace his minutes at this stage of his career, play him as more of a depth blue line role. And I guess there's still some lingering questions in goal. I think Mackenzie Blackwood, and I'm fascinated to hear what Alex and Perlo think of this. I think he went a long way to help his reputation last year because he had some really great moments at times for the Colorado Avalanche. I think later in the season, his play kind of regressed just slightly a little bit. The playoffs, obviously, he started the series very well against Dallas, and obviously the third period in Game 7's one he's going to want to forget. But nevertheless, you got to credit Dallas for that. And he was up against Jay Gottinger on the other side, who's, of course, one of the best goalies going. And then Scott Wedgwood backing him up. And Scott Wedgwood, he's one of these goalies that you put him in there any given night in a backup role. I have great confidence, great faith in him. Now, if something were to happen to Blackwood, and we know we have questions about him, would Wedgwood be a guy that you're going to be able to run with as the guy if something injury-wise were to happen to Mackenzie Blackwood? That's still a question mark in my mind going into this season. So when I look at Colorado, it's a team that, as far as their point total is concerned, didn't really do a heck of a lot with it as far as the win total. You have to factor in the division they're in, as with all these teams, when you're analyzing them going into the season. And when you look at the Central Division, Winnipeg might take a step back, but they're not falling off the face of the earth this year. Dallas is still going to be, I think, a very, very good team and contending once again. St. Louis, which we'll get to later on, and you probably can already tell I like St. Louis a lot. I think it's fair to assume that Utah could be an improved hockey team this season as well. Everything went so badly for Nashville last year that you kind of almost have to think there's nowhere to go but up. Now, how much improvement they make remains to be seen, but almost feels like they can't fall any further. They can only go up. After what we saw last year, Chicago, we'll see. There's still room in the rebuild to go, but like I said, renewed optimism, and they'll be certainly integrating a lot more of their core young players this year. Minnesota's the question, obviously, too. What are you going to get from them this season? But still, they're always a competitive team, and if they get the goaltending from Gustafsson, they're still a team that you're going to have to deal with. So when you look at the landscape of the Central Division, and that the fact that, to me, that there's still enough question marks about the depth at forward for Colorado. I love the blue line, 1 through 6, no question, but still some questions about depth at forward, enough questions about the goaltending duo, that when I see the point total at 105.5 for Colorado, I'm certainly not running to bet that over. I can tell you that right now. So I have not decided if I'm going to bet it yet, but it's a lean for me, at least, to under 105.5 points for the Colorado Avalanche this season. Alex, your thoughts on Colorado?
Yeah, the way you could kind of describe the Avalanche is almost like something from the Twilight Zone. They stand in the middle of the room and everything else is moving around or around them, basically. Like you said, the teams that are in that division that were strong, like Dallas, like Winnipeg, they've gotten a little bit better. Teams who weren't that good last year, like Nashville and Chicago, and even Utah, have gotten a little bit stronger. So it doesn't seem like Colorado's done much to really put themselves into the yes, we're running away with the division category, or necessarily we're bottoming out of the category of the division in that category. They're right in the middle of things. And like I said, it doesn't seem like they're going to be a team that's going to be getting 105, 110 points. I would be leaning toward the under with that as well. But I would probably be looking at doing something that I've talked about this on previous previews, and I'll be mentioning it throughout, looking at, stage of elimination process. I could see this being kind of same old for Colorado. They have a great season and then they get bounced out somewhere in the first or second round. You can get plus 170 for them to get knocked out in the first round, plus 310 if they get knocked out in the conference semifinals. So those are two bets that I'll have, and those will be a little bit larger than some of the other shots I've taken in that market, because I just don't see where, Colorado, though, they stay healthy. They should be able to navigate through the regular season the way that they have the last several years, find their way into a playoff spot. It's just a matter of, can they finally find a way to turn it on in the postseason? He said, can the combination of the Woods and net, be enough to, one, balance each other out throughout an 82-game schedule, but can one of them, notably obviously Blackwood being the starter, rise to the occasion and make a deeper run into the playoffs, get past, like I said, with the way the format is still to this season, you still have to get past your division rivals to get into the conference final territory and cup final territory. So can you beat Dallas? Can you beat Winnipeg with the goaltending you have, with your secondary scoring chipping in? Those are the question marks we have. I don't worry about this team in October, November, December. Start worrying about them in March, April, and May. And so it just kind of seems like it's going to be same old hat for Colorado. They navigate through the regular season, take care of business, beat the bad teams. One thing I will note is, if you look in there at their schedule, going around in mid to late January, they have a 7-game homestand against teams that they should certainly beat: Ottawa, Columbus, Toronto coming into town, Nashville, Washington, Anaheim, and Philly. That's going to be a huge stretch for them. We're talking about them being contenders within that division, or just fighting for a playoff spot via the wild card.
That is definitely a scheduling stretch to monitor. And again, for Colorado, we saw some dip in their defensive numbers last year, slightly. Offensively, there's still not much of a concern. I mean, they still finished 6th in the NHL in goals per game last year. Only Tampa, Washington, Winnipeg, Dallas, and Vegas averaged more goals per game last year in the regular season than Colorado. But like I said, there's another thing too, is I worry about that. Another thing, when you've been contending every year, you've had to pay everybody the piper, and and it chips away at your organizational depth a little bit. So while I love the blue line when fully healthy, there's going to be some concerns there. If, say, 2 or 3 of your starting blue liners, regular blue liners, are out, that does become a greater concern. And like I said, already up front to begin the season, I do worry about whether that punch third and fourth line offensively, because we talk about how this is such a 4-line league these days. The Florida Panthers are a perfect example of that. You got to have 4 lines that can play both ways, offensively and defensively. There's going to be concerns about, will there be enough offensive firepower for Colorado this year from their bottom 6? Perlo, what do you think here for this Colorado Avalanche team?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing when you're talking about Colorado in this division, and you guys mentioned it, is there has been a lot of improvement or not a lot, but there has been improvement for teams. Dallas, I think, is going to be a little more difficult this year. They're going to be using rookies and stuff like that. But overall, it's just a very tough division. And what makes that difficult for a team like Colorado is you would like to get up real early in the season, where you are comfortable going the last 30 games and you can start resting guys and stuff like that. But unfortunately, in this division, it doesn't give you usually that much opportunity, and I think even less so this year. So that's going to be a difficulty for them. I do actually like the Victor Olofsson signing. I think their third line might even be a little better than last year. And I really do like Brent Burns. He's actually did fairly well the last 2 years in Carolina. He's 40 though, but when is he going to slow down? If it's this year, they could be in a little bit of trouble. If not, I think he's going to be better than Lindgren was. So I think they've improved that way, possibly. Josh Manson, you never know what he's going to be able to do in a full season. He's getting up there as well. He's played some hard minutes. I agree with you. If they do start to see injuries here, you're talking about guys like Keaton Middleton and stuff that have to fill in roles. But I see them as a team that pretty much easily makes the playoffs, and Alex stole it from me as well. I like him to lose in the second round as well. I like that bet quite a bit. That's probably the bet I would take here. I do think they're going to finish somewhere in 1-2-3, somewhere around there.
That's plus 310 at FanDuel.
Plus 310. I like that bet.
Second round. That is a good price. Yep.
I like that bet for all the reasons I suggested. It's just more of a grind in the regular season for this division. And when you look at teams in the Pacific Division like Vegas and Edmonton, they are more likely to have the luxury to try to take things easy in the second half, where it's less likely in this division. So I like that bet, and that's the one. Also, I'm looking for it. I haven't found anything yet, but I would like to take some Nichushkin points too. I think he's going to have a great year this year. Also, they are going to have a season where they're all together now. Like last year, there was a lot of trades that happened at the trade line with Brock Nelson and the chemistry issues and stuff like that. So this year, I think they're going to be a little better off that way. So I'm thinking maybe Brock Nelson might be able to get over his points, and Nichushkin might get over his points. But I haven't found anything on those two yet, so I'm just going to stick with the make the playoffs, lose in the second round.
I think one thing to keep in mind is this is more for day-to-day NHL betting when we get the season going in October. Do we just ride the hell out of Marty Necas in October? Because that was when he just came out of the gate firing last year for Carolina. I mean, his start to the year was unconscious. It was really how
he's so inconsistent. So when he gets on a run, go with him, and when he's off, get off.
He's been a little streaky in his little streakiness in his output. There's no question about that. But 43 points in the first 28 games. That was ridiculous, to begin the year for Carolina. And then after that, he had just 12 points in his next 21 games. So he's cooled off significantly when he was with Carolina. But he actually, the question was going to be when he first got traded to Colorado, how are things going to unfold? But in the regular season, 36 games with Colorado, 33 points in 36 games. Pretty respectable. Almost a point per game player after he joined the Avs. So you got to think now having a full training camp with his team this year, that's going to help for our guy Marty Necas to start the season. Maybe not quite as hot as he did last year, but still get off to a good start.
This is a team that I've always kind of leaned on in the bargain bin department when looking for guys to get 2+ points, 3+ points. And I think, like you said, with that cohesiveness to this top six, we could see a full year with Landeskog finally healthy, a full year of Nichushkin after a couple of years of issues, and Nature's now, being settled in. I think these are some spots that we'll definitely be able to capitalize on. Getting those guys 2 points, power play goals, 2 assists, things of that nature.
Yeah, no question. I think this is definitely a team that it seems like there's guys that can go off for 2, 3, 4 points, 2, 3 goals, have hat-trick nights. That's happened quite a bit too for Colorado over the years. One thing that was, most teams that you tell them you're going to be 8th in the NHL last year in the regular season with the power play percentage, you'd say, hey, that's great. We'll take it. For Colorado, actually, that's mildly disappointing. Believe it or not,
yes,
that they were 8th on the power play last year in the regular season. The teams that had better power play percentages than them, there were a bunch. It's pretty crazy to look at on this list. Chicago had a better power play percentage last year than Colorado, if you can believe it. Yeah, not by much, but slightly. Chicago on the power play last year, 24.87%. Colorado, 24.79%. With the man advantage last year. Winnipeg was the league's top power play in the regular season last year, followed by Vegas, New Jersey, Detroit, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh. That's one thing Pittsburgh was pretty good at last year, was the power play, even though the season ended up overall not being a good one. And then, of course, it was Chicago, then Colorado after that.
And that's saying a lot, because that means that was for the Hawks specifically. That means it was mostly the second half of the season where we saw their power play picking up. So Colorado probably ranked maybe a little bit, certainly ahead of the Hawks earlier than in the season, and probably were closer to that 5th and 6th percentile. So that's something they need to definitely improve on, but nothing worse than top 10 for them this year in the power play department with everyone healthy.
I'm with Perlo's thoughts on the props, the season-long player props with Big Val Nichushkin. The only hesitancy, but again, you can't be scared to make a bet because you're worried someone's going to get injured. And that's obviously the only concern would be, is he going to make it for 82 games this season? But if he's healthy for the majority of the season, we know what he's done here in Colorado, and we know the kind of offensive production he can provide. We know what he can be on the power play too. We talk about how that power play for Colorado standards, 8th is actually, kind of disappointing. Well, a healthy Nichushkin being on that power play is going to go a long way for sure for Colorado.
Here's a radical idea. Would you guys maybe look at an under point total with Nathan MacKinnon? Because of the fact that he finally has a seemingly healthy core around him in the top 6 phase, maybe he feels, hey, I don't have to do so damn much for this team like I've been doing, or would you expect him to still be on a 100-point plus clip?
It's 113.5, by the way, Nathan MacKinnon's regular season points total at FanDuel.
Yeah, as far as the MacKinnon one, when Nietzsche's almost always goes through highs and lows. And when he's going through lows, they're going to rely on MacKinnon a lot more. I'm not sure if I'd like to go that direction. And they just rely on him so much anyways. As far as the points over 1.5, 5, I'm not betting it either. But one thing you got to say is they're not going to be shackled with Georgiev for the first little while too. So they did have that last year, and I think that'll give him a couple more points.
He had 142 seasons ago. He had 116 last year. Now his point total is 113.5 this year. But keep in mind the last 2 years that MacKinnon had 140 2 seasons ago, 116 last year. He played 82 and 79 regular season games. Right. So you're assuming almost full season clean bill of health as well.
Right, exactly. So even if he misses, this team plays well enough and he ends up taking off a few games late in the season that could short that, right? He ends up missing a week or two to a nagging injury in the middle of the season. He could end up missing that. He's also going to be more
load management down the stretch based on positioning, like Paul Maurice did in Florida at times. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what I'd be concerned about is the load management if they can do it.
And he's going to be an Olympian, correct?
Correct.
Yeah,
of course.
Okay.
Team Canada.
So that may be something to look at.
Yeah.
The only thing about load management is, again, it's this division is really tough. So it depends on if they can get that, if they feel comfortable that they're going to make the playoffs, if they can put it in their minds that it doesn't matter if you win the division or not win the division, like Florida does and Tampa Bay does, which they haven't really shown a propensity to do. So I
chase the division. Exactly. That's another reason why that thought, just sort of entered my mind, that maybe there's going to be games that he just says, you know what, Nate, we need you for the long haul, for the, knowing you're played at the Olympics too, for Canada, in Italy, in February. Maybe we're just going to pace you a little bit down the stretch. And of course, that's something you got to factor in if you're going to be betting over under these season-long player points props that are available. Great stuff with Alex B. Smith and Perlo on the Colorado Avalanche. Before we wrap it up, we want to mention our new sponsors, Royal Cannabis, and we thank them for being along as our official smoke sponsor of the Ice Guys show this season. Here's a word from our brand new sponsor, Royal Cannabis.
Royal Cannabis, where the kings and queens shop.
Check it out, 20% off using the promo code IceGuys, RoyalCannabisShop.com. Thanks to Royal Cannabis, brand new sponsors of the show. That's the Colorado Avalanche. We thank you guys for joining us. For Alex B. Smith and Perlo, I'm Ian Cameron. As our 32 teams in 32 days NHL team season previews roll along, courtesy of the Ice Guys.